talk is on preparing for sleep and awaking in the morning renewed. Every day there are new articles on sleep. Just in yesterday's newspaper, just as an example, there is a study from CNN. Study links college students' grades to sleep schedules, saying that those students who sleep regularly versus irregularly do much better at school. Well, that's not surprising, but what is surprising is that this kind of article is in the newspaper now in an ongoing new way, in that the awareness of the need for sleep has become much more in the foreground of our culture. This article, for instance, says as much as you need to set an alarm to go to sleep at night, to wake up in the morning, college students need to set an alarm to go to sleep, because it's regularity that matters. Which is to say, sleep is in the news and sleep is a challenge. But sleep's always been a challenge. As long as there's been people, there has been reasons to find it difficult to sleep. In an older time, the conditions for sleeping weren't like the conditions now. Bedrooms, for instance, are really a product of the Industrial Revolution, 16th, 17th century. Before that, houses were small, people slept not only often in the same room, but shared the same bed. When you went to an inn in the 1500s, the 1600s, you often shared the bed in the inn. So the idea that you would have the idea that you had your own space, your own privacy, is somewhat a new idea, a modern idea, let alone that you could control the lights and the temperature. In the old days, you didn't have control over those things, and you had more to worry about. You had, if you were sleeping outdoors, you had the concern of animals attacking you or bandits. More, the rabbis in the Talmud even discouraged people from sleeping by themselves, if they were a man, in a house by themselves, because Lilith, who was the seducer, might come and arouse them. And so the interesting thing there was the idea that a man generally did not sleep alone in a house by oneself. Today I was on the Upper East Side recently doing a tour of New York, and they said that the majority of dwellings, of units on the Upper East Side are now lived in by people living alone, singly. That's a growing phenomenon in our urban centers. So pulling this back, sleep a challenge, and rituals, lullabies, were created in order to help people sleep. The word lullaby itself, which is as old, again, as music, in terms of people singing to ease other people, often identified with putting children to sleep, could either be, and most likely is, from the sound of la la la, bye bye, to ease a child to sleep. But there's a theory that even the word lullaby is Lilith abe, Lilith go. That woman, that seductress I mentioned a moment ago, that you shouldn't sleep in the house alone if you're a man. Well, Lilith was not only the one who would endanger sleep, but the lives of children, so that amulets were written against Lilith. And lullabies that we'll look at tonight are connected to that fear of the unknown of sleep. As I shared in our earlier talks, the rabbi said of sleep that it's 1/60th of death in brachot. 1/60th being a measure you could taste. In going to sleep, you let go of control. You were more vulnerable. and your own emotions rose to the surface, creating restlessness. And so the rabbis created rituals. And the key ritual for going to sleep at night was related to that image of sleep being a taste of death. Rabbi Akiva, a rabbi of the 1st and 2nd century of the land of Israel, was tortured to death by the Romans after the revolt of Bar Kokhba in the 130s in Israel. And we actually read on Yom Kippur, as part of our martyrology, that story of his end. And that story, which is recorded in Brachot, to death. And in those days, they would have these iron claws that would tear at a person. And as he's being tortured, the sun is coming up, and he begins to say the Shema, the prayer that says, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one." That statement of primal faith in the Jewish tradition from Deuteronomy chapter 6. And his students say, "Teacher, even in this moment, you would say a prayer in which you're being tortured?" To which he said, "All my life I have wondered when it says, 'And you should love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your might, and all your soul,' what it would mean to give my whole soul to God. In this moment, I can now know." And he finished the Shema and he died. So that story of martyrology, of a great teacher, became identified with the unknown of going to sleep at night, because you don't know if you will awake in the morning. And so, like Rabbi Akiva, and like the confessional prayer that Rabbi Akiva's story became embedded in, of saying the Shema on one's deathbed. So every night became a taste, a preparation of loss of control. And so you'll see on your sheets the Shema, and there's a prayer that introduces it. On this, taken from the conservative movement's Sidur Sim Shalom from 1985, the prayer that introduces it is called Hamapil. "Praised are you, Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who brings sleep to my eyes, slumber to my eyelids. May it be your will, Lord my God and God of my ancestors, that I lie down in peace and that I arise in peace." So in turning to God on our bed before we go to sleep, we ask for God to protect us, to comfort us. That then leads into the Shema. In psychology, there's a concept called a transition object. Transition object, we all know, it's that teddy bear that a child might insist on having in bed. Psychologists would say a transition object is a reminder of closeness to one's mother. Likewise, it might be a blanket, it might be the fingers in one's mouth, suckling. There's a sense that to feel safe, one needs an object. And psychologists might say of the Shema and of the prayer Hamapil that these are simply transition objects. Except that sells short the content of the ritual itself. So on one hand, these rituals developed as ways to give us security, closeness to the big parent, to God, to allow us to feel safe. But the prayers themselves ask God, "Let my sleep be undisturbed by troubling thoughts, bad dreams, and wicked schemes." That's highlighting the importance of an affirmation, of intentionality. We know when we tell ourselves in going to sleep at night, "I want to get up tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock. In contrast to tomorrow morning, "I don't want to get up at 7, I want to sleep in." Now that gets harder to do as we get older. We're more like programmed. But But we can tell ourselves, and it's pretty amazing, I'm getting up at 7 o'clock, and often I find I wake up a moment before the alarm goes off. That our internal clock is set by intentionality. Last week we talked about dreams. And likewise, we said we can tell ourselves, tonight I want to remember my dreams. And if we do it a few times, you will remember your dreams. The rabbis tell the story in the Talmud of a king who comes and basically is told beforehand, tonight you are going to dream. And he's told what he's going to dream. And that creates an intention. And sure enough, the king that has that dream, which is only to say, back to the prayer, that our intention, our affirmations, program us. And there's content in these prayers that make a difference. What's not here in the Sim Shalom is one of my favorite of the prayers. And that is, there's another introductory paragraph. This is a Siddur by Rabbi Jonathan Sachs. And in the traditional mode, he writes as follows. As the first thing you say when you put your head down at night, before you get to the Hareni, before you get to the Shema, you say, I hereby forgive anyone who has angered or provoked me or sinned against me, physically or financially, or by failing to give me due respect, or in any other matter relating to me, involuntarily or willingly, inadvertently or deliberately, whether in word or deed, let no one incur punishment because of me. I'm just going to make sure that the volume is all the way up. So, the first thing that one says as an intentionality is, forgive me if I've angered anybody, and may I forgive them. There are these wonderful stories told about forgiveness and how important it is. There's two stories I'll share, one from the Talmud and then one from the Zohar. Rabbi Nechunya in Brachot, actually in Megillah, in the Talmud, was asked, how did you live so long? To which he replied, my fellow's curse has never climbed into bed with me, for I have forgiven all who have hurt me. And that image of not taking to bed with you those who are angry with you gets further developed in the Zohar. Zohar again comes to light in the year 1300, 800 years after the Talmud. In this case, the story is told of somebody who's not a rabbi, at least the hero of the story. The Rabbi Abba is traveling, and he sees a man sleeping alongside of the road. And there's a snake coming toward him. And he's unprotected. He's asleep. And a badger comes and grabs and kills the snake. He wakes up in the morning and he sees the dead snake, and the rabbi, who has been a witness, says to him, what have you done that merits such a protection, such a miracle? To which the stranger replies, no one ever rendered me evil, for I have sought to reconcile with all those with whom I had a disagreement, and I forgave all who ever hurt me. And for those who had difficulty forgiving me, I always exerted to act kindly toward them. And so that image of going to bed at night and letting go of anything I have done wrong or anything anyone did wrong to me is the first step of preparation of going to bed at night. Because we know at night our emotions are amplified, and little problems can become big problems. In the Art Scroll Siddur, which is used in modern Orthodox synagogues like at Beth Jacob, there's another little piece in that introductory paragraph that deals with reincarnation. It's the one place in the Siddur that touches on reincarnation, in which one says, "May you forgive me, God, for anyone I might have injured, whether in this life or a previous life." And it's the one place to point to say how mainstream reincarnation is in the Jewish tradition. It's not so mainstream. It's part of the Zohar, part of the Jewish mystical tradition, but it's not something most of us have been schooled in. And so the first act of preparation of going to sleep at night is to seek reconciliation, to let go of the problems and the conflicts of the day, and then to turn to God for both protection and to affirm God as one, with the humility and uncertainty of not knowing what will occur in the morning. Every night, as part of our prayers, we have a prayer called Hashkivenu, in which we say to God, allow us to be protected through the night. Lullabies are another way that tradition provides. There's lullabies like Oseh Shalom B'Romav, God, you have made order among the heavens. May you so make order here on earth. Now, even that, Oseh Shalom, which we sing in synagogue, that's part of the Kaddish as the last line, is much more a lullaby, because only at night do you see the stars. Night is not all dark. Night is not all dark in the sense of dangerous and fearful. Night is also a time of beauty, when you can see God's handiwork in the heavens above. Night is the time in which you can, through dreams, have experiences that are the adventure of both inner life, but in the tradition of the divine. Modern psychologists and sleep experts have coined a phrase that I don't relate to clearly, called sleep hygiene. Hygiene sounds like because it sounds like you're not clean. So that's why, but that's the going term. It's called sleep hygiene, which is the word used by sleep physicians to describe all the things you could do and should do to prepare for bed. So a little checklist in that regard, and that to tie up how Jewish tradition says to prepare. First thing is consistent hours. Some emphasize that even more important than the hour you go to sleep is the hour you wake up. That's the one, because in part it's harder to program. And the consistency of your sleep hours makes a big difference. That article I showed in the very beginning says that people who sleep irregular hours essentially mess with their internal clock, and by being irregular can shift it to another time zone or 2 or 3. And for young people getting up to take a test at 8 in the morning, and if they're on a time zone that it feels like it's 5 in the morning, that's cause for lack of performance. And so the first piece of what to do is to go to bed and to be programmed to go to bed at a certain time. We all know that if we're used to going to bed at a certain time, that's when we start to get sleepy. That is because the melatonin has started kicking in, our clock is shifting, we're prepared, and there's a need for regularity. Second guidance is relaxation techniques. That includes making notes before you go to bed of things that are the checklist for tomorrow. Being aware of what you need to let go of, because I'll take care of it tomorrow, allows us to relax and tend to the moment of sleep. There's breathing techniques. Andrew Weil, we touched on it, has this technique, what she calls the 4-7-8. Breathing in through one's nostrils to the count of 4, holding it to the count of 7, and then exhaling with a whoosh sound through one's mouth to the count of 8, and doing it 4 or 5 times to shift to a place of relaxation. There are guided meditations and tapes that can allow you to go through your body, releasing stress. There is a lullaby that I now free associate to before I return, because what I love about it is that it was nominated for Song of the Year, a lullaby by Irving Berlin, in the movie White Christmas. So many of us can bring to mind the song Dreaming of a White Christmas. But do you know the song from that movie that won that nomination for Best Song was called, I gotta find it. All right, bear with me. This is where it goes as followed. When I'm worried and I can't sleep, I'll count my blessings instead of sheep. And I fall asleep counting my blessings. When my bankroll is getting small, I think of when I had none at all. And I fall asleep counting my blessings. I think about a nursery and I picture curly heads, and one by one I count them as they slumber in their beds. If you're worried and you can't sleep, just count your blessings instead of sheep, and you'll fall asleep. White Christmas came out in 1954. It was nominated in 1955 for Best Song of the Year. So that song and the image of, relaxation techniques of counting sheep. The idea of counting sheep is trying to focus our attention on one focal point, whether counting our breath, counting our blessings, allows us to let go of busy mind. If we take a shower before we go to bed or a bath, that changes our body temperature. So when you come out, you feel warm, and then your body cools off, and that helps you fall asleep. So somebody like Arianna Huffington, in her book Sleep Revolution, writes that she now takes a bath every night before she goes to sleep. Some recommend adding Epsom salt to it. So those are some of the to-dos. And then there are the not-to-dos for relaxation. Not to eat a big meal before you go to bed because your body is digesting and churning. Not to drink too much alcohol because that interferes. You can go to bed faster, but it interferes, the alcohol, with your circadian rhythm. So you'll wake up and find it harder to go to bed because you're no longer as tired. And of course, caffeine, a stimulant, is a problem as well. So consistent hours, and then there's the sleep hygiene of both mindset and physical set. And that physical set also includes dark, quiet, and cool. How cool is debated. The research seems to indicate that you should be in the 60s to sleep at night. I grew up in Phoenix, and that's too cold for me. And But they do strongly say it needs to be well below 78 and cooler to sleep at night, and dark and quiet. The main thing is trust. The main thing about falling asleep is trusting that you can fall asleep, that we are naturally wired to fall asleep, and in letting go trustfully, that's the key. Likewise, when you wake up in the middle of the night, the key about going back to sleep is the trust that you can fall back to sleep. During the day, one other piece, and that's napping. Short naps, less than a half hour, ideally about 20 minutes, can rejuvenate us in remarkable ways. But once we go past the half hour and get into deeper sleep, that can do trouble with our circadian rhythms. So on weekends, if you take that long nap, which I do on Saturdays, it's very hard to be tired and go to sleep at night, and then it's harder to wake up on Sunday later because we're set times to wake up, particularly as we get older. So naps have a place, but they are to be done with care in terms of that balance. All the more for people who have trouble sleeping, they need to be even more careful and even consult with a doctor about naps, how often and regularly, because that interferes with the rhythm and being tired enough to fall asleep at night. Last piece, and that is, so much of the difficulty of falling asleep is often medical, either side effects of medication, pain, or a product of some kind of organic problem. And so to sleep, it's always good to be of good health, to exercise. It's one of the key aids in sleep is exercise, but also to consult with a doctor to see what else might be going on physically if there's a sleep problem. So that's the piece about falling asleep. Let's take a little break to have a conversation for like 5 or 10 minutes. Questions or reactions to falling asleep. And then what I'm planning to do is talk about the rituals of waking up and do a guided meditation. Sarah?
Well, my question is about the forgiveness part.
Yeah.
Because it's like, how can you're only talking to yourself. So how is this forgiveness doing anything in your world other than making yourself feel better?
So in the Jewish tradition, if you have injured somebody, you have to ask that person for forgiveness before you ask God, let alone before you say to yourself, well, I let it go, having injured them. So the implication is that, but there's another piece to that. And that implication is that God as a parent is also injured when you hurt somebody else. So like a parent, when the children are fighting, that's deeply upsetting to the parents. It's not just between them, it feels personal. And so even when you've gotten forgiveness from another person, you still have to ask God for creating upset. So at bedtime, the implication is you have asked that other person to make amends, and you're saying two things. One is to God, forgive me for anybody I have injured that has upset you. May I so be forgiven by you. That's the key there. And the second part is, anybody who has injured me, I let it go. I forgive them. So there's two parts to the forgiveness that's traditionally sought on the bed.
So that if I forgive, if they've hurt me and I let it go,
right,
it doesn't really change the outside world. It just changes your inner world.
That's right. So if I forgive somebody who's injured me, it changes my inner world. Rabbi Harold Kushner, who said to a woman after her divorce who was still so angry at her husband, he said, you know, why are you letting him live in your head rent-free? You know, let him go. So we often carry with us our anger, our hurt behind that, and it deeply disturbs us. And all the more when we try to sleep at night, those are the emotions that rise to the surface and become amplified. And so these are conscious, ritualized attempts to cleanse ourselves of those painful emotions. And that's back to the point I made, that they're more than just transition objects. It's more than just God protect me. There's content that has wisdom, and that's hard to do, but that's the wisdom. And sometimes, to add, you almost need the formula to do what otherwise is hard to self-initiate, which is forgiving people that have upset you. Roz?
Question. What if someone hits me with the baseball bat?
Yeah.
How do I go to bed forgiving that person?
So you don't have to forgive everybody.
You have the physical pain.
Yeah. So sometimes, I mean, immediately after, it's hard to forget about it. If you're bruised and aching, somebody hit you with a baseball bat. And there are extreme cruelties that you may not need to forgive. That's a whole separate conversation about what do you have to forgive and what not. So those two stories, the one from the Talmud and one of the Zohar, represent an ideal. The ideal of being able to forgive somebody, but there's also a place for justice. And you don't have to forgive somebody who has not made amends or who has injured you in such a way that there's a trauma that you need to process. And some extreme wrongdoings, the tradition would teach, are only forgiven by God with death of a person, like the extremes, murder, causing trauma. So this represents the ideal, but what's to say is most of the injuries that keep us up at night, if we think about it a month or two later, we recognize our best being gone, that we've exaggerated them. Most of the things, again, that feel so immediate in a larger perspective aren't as big as they seem in the moment. And that's what it's addressing. And back to the nature of religion, because this is in the context of religious learning. Religion seeks to refine our character, seeks to make us strive to be our most human, our best, and not be coarse. To be coarse is to seek retribution. To be coarse is to say, if somebody hits me, I'm going to hit them 10 times harder. That's coarse. A religious mindset at its best is trying to elicit compassion for yourself and for others, and to know that often people didn't know what they were doing would cause so much pain. That most of the injuries are due to misunderstandings, not all, or out of fear. And so, back to going to sleep at night, it's a fearful time. Fear is a big part of our lives. And learning how to manage fear. Back to Rabbi Harold Kushner, he points out that the word that is most repeated, the command that's most repeated in the Bible is, thou shalt not fear, al tirah. Because we are wired to be on guard and to let go of fear and to trust that we will be safe at night. To let go of the fear of malice, of injury by others, is to be a person who lives more hopefully, more trustingly, and more happily. Other thoughts about things that keep you up?
I problem solve endlessly.
do that
You know,
same
I
thing.
replay it's not the forgiveness issue, although that's always fascinating, and here's a Yom Kippur sermon in the making, right? Forgiveness and sleep. But, you know, I had this conversation, I'm replaying it over and over. How would I have replayed it differently? What would I have said differently? Could I have said something differently? Did I do something wrong? Did they do something wrong? It's this endless replay of whatever it was that's keeping me up.
Yeah.
And it'll even wake me up in the middle of the night. I mean, I'll go to bed fine because I'm tired. 3 in the morning, I'll be having this conversation.
So this links back to last week's conversation about dreams. When we go to sleep, all the emotions that have been checked and insulated, boxed during the day, that takes energy, and our conscious mind is busy out here, so we box up all the negative energy so as not to be distracted. And then at night, the box is opened, springs up, and that's for good and bad, because sometimes unconsciously we can solve problems. We can have an aha, this is what I should do.
And then you remember to get up and write it down.
Right, so it's always good to have a pad by your bed. But it's a heavy price to pay in terms of sleeplessness and restless sleep and all that anxiety. And we're usually wiser on that index card next to our bed to write down tomorrow morning, you know, on a to-do list, I will think about how I can talk to so-and-so, or I will call so-and-so. Because it's a price to pay. Though sometimes, not all bad, sometimes you can get an insight.
You do have sometimes a revelation. A lot of it's also just concern. Like, I'm worried about somebody.
Yeah.
And going back to, I'm thinking about what your question is, sometimes it's just a choice to, okay, I need to worry about this tomorrow, and making that choice. But sometimes, you know, I worries about, you know, a parent or a child or whatever. Those keep.
Yeah. And that only underscores, which went back to the first class, that at night things are amplified. Emotions are amplified. That's the problem.
Yeah.
And so we have to, because when we know that, and it's just how it is, and it will always be, but there are ways to kind of damp it down, to lower those emotions so they're not as disturbing. Not always. I mean, there are disturbing things that happen. But at the same time, there are ways that we can consciously prepare for sleep, like taking a warm bath with Epsom salt. Epsom salt helps relax us more fully, just so that when we go to bed, rather than being like this, tensed, in which we're holding a lot of emotion close, which gets stored in joints.
There's also essential oils now that a lot of people use.
Right?
Ambien. We're smoking pot nowadays.
Right? There's a lot of things
There's a
people,
lot- it's
chemicals that people use to fall
what's it
asleep.
called?
Melatonin?
Yeah.
What is it?
Melatonin.
Melatonin is, again, the natural chemical that
Yeah.
tells you when you're going to need to you're getting tired to go to
Right.
sleep. So you can buy everywhere from Trader Joe's to Costco melatonin, Mother's Market, to supplement
Does it
what you
work?
would do.
It
Well-
works, but it becomes addictive.
Well, it changes your body's need to produce it itself. So that,
I don't like
It helps you get to sleep, but it doesn't help you stay asleep.
right, that also.
And part of what this whole sleep study is, and the numerous drugs that are available, is because they work on different aspects of sleep. Some people have difficulty falling asleep, some people have difficulty staying asleep. So the drugs work on different aspects of the sleep cycle. So that's also part of it, and they're learning a lot of, the drug companies work on trying to find new sleep avenues to work on that are not addictive and yet will work on a different aspect of the sleep cycle.
So what Sarah, who's a pharmacist, is sharing is that today, because there are different aspects of sleep, as she shared, in terms of being tired, which is the melatonin piece, that piece of the body clock. There's the time zone you're on and those circadian rhythms. There are ways of being disturbed by sleep, that there are different drugs. That's a new area, new the last 20 years, of being able to identify and refine different problems with different chemicals. And always, chemicals have side effects, and you do pay a price. So that's where you need to go to a doctor. That's not the purpose of this conversation. And there are ways, and it's new. This is one of the newest areas of specialization. It's so new, it's not even clear which box it's within medicine, if it's internal medicine, if it's psychiatry, if it's neurology. It's, it's a little of each in terms of who's the specialist. So that's where you need to go to a doctor.
People
Dorothy?
have been identified as sleep medicine specialists.
Right. But
So
only
there's sleep, Hoag has a sleep clinic,
Yeah.
UCI's got a sleep clinic.
But all within the first sleep clinic that was created at Stanford by a fellow named William Dement, and he's still practicing in the sleep clinic, still alive, which means it's only the last 20 or 30 years that it's begun to become more normative, and the last 10. And there's a huge business around all of these sleep aids, which we also touched on last time. Now you got beds that not only can adjust differently if you're sharing the bed in terms of how hard, how soft, tilted, heat, if you want some heat within the bed. There's devices that measure your sleep to tell you how well you're sleeping, the hours of sleeping.
Sleep apnea clinics.
There are sleep apnea clinics, which again is medicine and important. There are different kinds of sounds. Billy Crystal, I saw him do a routine recently, and he said, I'm not afraid of dying when I sleep because I don't sleep. He said, so I got one of these machines, that sounds like waterfalls to help me feel more relaxed, but it only made me get up and go to the bathroom more. He says, and I'm at the phase of life when I go to the bathroom, it's like Morse code, dash, dash, dot, dot. He did this whole routine about the difficulties of sleep, and it's this huge commercial enterprise. In that regard, and in Ruth's honor, I want to quote Ruth's grandson, who is a specialist in sleep, coaching the NFL in a very active and successful way. And what he says is, sleep is the most proven and potent performance aid. It goes back to the very beginning. And one of the things that they're exploring regarding sleep is, if lack of regular sleep and lack of sleep undermines performance, well, then getting enough sleep is an aid, but what if you get a little extra sleep? Can that even be a boost to performance? And that's part of the conversation and what's taking place, which also leads to one other category, and that's sleep debt. That when you don't get enough sleep one night, you went to bed, Saturday night, you got up the same time Sunday, you don't have to be panicky about it. You can take that long nap to make it up, or you can go to bed earlier the next night. So there is this notion of sleep debt that you can also bank time, like a really good night's sleep.
I thought you meant death.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I didn't say death.
Yeah, death.
Oh, debt. Oh, sorry. Sleep debt, D-E-B-T. That's the term they use in the sleep business, to tell you that you shouldn't worry if you're sleep deprived. You can make it up. You can.
That's good.
It's a bank account, a sleep account. That too is not so clear in terms of people who've gone without sleep for a very long time. Do you have to make up all that time? It doesn't seem to be the case. You can get back on track after a few good nights of sleep. But in the day-to-day, there is at play making up smaller amounts of time, hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, through going to bed earlier and taking naps. So with that, a transition now to waking up in the morning.
Okay, can I just add something?
Yeah, sure.
I read a book by a Chinese doctor who's in the Bay Area, Dr. Tom Wu, and he's recommending, like, if you don't have time to take a bath, take a foot bath with Epsom salt, because something about your feet relaxing
Yeah.
is supposedly very, very helpful to go to sleep.
So as you may know, there's a whole area of massage called reflexology that focuses just on the feet, because that's where all the nerves are, wind up. And by able to soothe your feet, I could understand why he would recommend that if you're so limited on time. Our time famine, some have referred to it, that in the world in which we live, the great shortage is time to relax.
But also water, because a bath takes a lot of water. So he's saying, if you can't do it, you don't have the time, you don't have the water, get a big bucket, get some Epsom salt, and soak your feet in hot water before you go to sleep. And it's very relaxing.
Yeah.
And it works. I've done it a number of times.
And it works. All right. Just get that bucket of water.
I think your time comment's really important, though, because
Yeah.
so much of these issues are related to our lifestyle choices.
Yeah.
Right, and I'm thinking about that comment you made earlier about people choosing to live alone in the Upper East Side or whatever, because we're so bombarded with stimulus constantly. It doesn't surprise me when people at one point just say, "I need to be by myself and be alone." I loved living alone the time I did, and I need my alone time desperately. If I don't get it, I feel anxious.
Yeah.
So I think it's a lifestyle issue, the amount of time we spend on our phones and our computers and all
Right.
of those things.
Yeah, that's what we talked about at the very first class, the idea that in our culture, back to the choices we have and how sleep today is different than it used to be in another time, just the ability to control our light and stay up all night and drink caffeine to crank in our wakefulness is something that did not occur for most of human history. And it's, I think, in part why there is this, it's the fad, the last 5 years, all these new sleep devices, trackers. Francine?
I was going to say on to that, you talk about light in the room when you're going
Yeah.
to sleep, and I know in my bedroom, there's my alarm light, there's the VCR light, whatever it is.
Yeah, that little bright.
And DVD light, and then there's just all these different lights in my room
Right.
that I look around. The clock light is looking at me.
Yeah.
And
It's
No, turn the clock around. That's
Yeah.
what
when
I do.
at 2:30 in the morning, I have to know what time it is. So.
No, you don't have to, no, you don't want to.
Yes, exactly. So,
I sleep with an
I think
iMac.
it's also very disturbing when I wake up in the middle of the night and there's all these, little lights in my room.
Yeah. So and lights is how our inner clock knows to be both preset to wake up, and so one little bright light can turn a switch for us to be confused, at least in terms of waking up and then having to go back. So the people who really specialize in sleep, and again they're dealing with people with more problem sleep, make a big play on dark.
Right.
Dark's really important. Yeah.
And another thing Jeff says is that
Yep.
he's got some glasses that you wear.
Yeah, he's
before
big
you
on
sleep.
yellow glasses. They find, and I've spoken to Jeff about this, blue light, which is the light that's at play on most of our screens, is precisely the light that wakes us up. And so therefore, what he and others do is they wear glasses that screen out the blue light. They're usually like a yellow lens to do so. Oh, and not even before it goes to sleep, like to get tired at night, as part of that preparation for sleep, because you don't want to be absorbing light before you go to bed, particularly blue light.
And part of
If-
this, I'm sorry,
go ahead, Dorothy.
sleep hygiene is that
Yeah.
you're supposed to stop all those devices an hour before you're ready to go to bed.
Right. And on the new iPhones, there's even a button to turn off the blue light now. Yeah.
But to give me an idea, for people who have a hard time waking up,
Yeah.
first thing you do, pick up your iPad or your phone. That blue light will wake you up.
That blue light will help. And light helps. Also, light helps during the day. You want to absorb light during the day to be regular with your internal clock and moving through your day in a healthy way. But hard time, that's the segue. Hard time waking up. So in Proverbs, there is the following in chapter 6. Atzal, which is lazy bones. Go to the ant, study its ways and learn. How long will you lie there, lazy bones? When will you awake from your sleep? A bit more sleep, a bit more slumber, a bit more hugging yourself in bed, and poverty will come calling upon you, and want like a man with a shield. So that in Proverbs, in the Bible, there's a concern that sleep is pleasure, and that people will choose this pleasure at the expense of industriousness, at the expense of ambition. That's the ambivalence of traditional cultures to sleep itself. Rumi, the 13th century Persian Muslim mystic, in a poem called The Breeze at Dawn. The breeze of dawn has secrets to tell you. Don't go back to sleep. You must ask for what you really want. Don't go back to sleep. People are going back and forth across the door sill where the two worlds touch. The door is round and open. Don't go back to sleep. And we all know that feeling of wanting to just turn off the alarm or put it on snooze and get 10 more minutes. Because one, particularly if we're tired, we may need it. And when you need it all the more, it's really pleasurable to get what you need. Where I'm concerned is the sense of skepticism that sleep is necessary, because it led in our tradition and leads in our current culture to people pushing themselves to do more and more and feel as if sleep is optional. And that can be dangerous. In contrast, Sam Keen, writer, poet, in a book called Fire in the Belly, one of those early books from the men's movement of like the 90s, wrote that you should linger in bed because in that hypnagogic state, that state between wakefulness and sleep, you can become aware of what's stirring within you, and you have access to a kind of a wisdom of the early morning. So that's the opposite of the lazy bones, his caution of don't get up too quickly. Allow yourself a little time to ease and to become self-aware. So the rabbis have liturgy, which is part of this handout, that goes back to the earliest writings in the Talmud, to help you wake up in the morning. There's a line from Bilam. Bilam is the non-Jewish prophet commissioned by Balak to curse the Israelites in the desert. And his series of attempts to curse the encamped Israelites, in each case, turn to blessing. And at one point he says, "Lo, a people that rises like a lion." And the rabbis will comment that a couple in love awakes with playful energy. And so that if you're eager to greet the day, if you're in love with life, if you're in love with God, you'll awake with that kind of stirring of enthusiasm. And the Shulchan Aruch, the great code of Jewish law, its very first sentence plays on that image. You shall rise as a lion each morning to do the will of your Creator. So if you're in love with God, then like that young couple, you'll wake up with enthusiasm. And so the first thing the rabbis teach is, what is your first thought to have when you wake up in the morning? And the first word that the rabbis say you are to learn to have as your reflex is thank you. And that is with this one line, Modeh ani lefanecha, grateful am I before you. Melech chai v'kayam, ruler alive and enduring or established. Shechazarta bi nishmati, that you've returned my soul within me, bechemla, with graciousness. Rabba emunatecha, great is your faithfulness, or another way to read it is, great is your faith in us. This is a book that came out just this month on this prayer of Modeh Ani. It's by my friend, as the editor, Martin Cohen. I have two pieces in it. One analyzing each of the words, and another a Yiddish Modeh Ani poem that Anna Cottle, our secretary, learned Yiddish at Cal Berkeley and translated for me. And then I have a second piece on this Yiddish Modeh Ani poem in here, which is to say that this poem, Modeh Ani, is important enough as part of the rhythm of Jewish life that's why this 340 plus page book is just a collection of essays about it. Yes, Francie?
Okay. That prayer,
Yeah.
I learned in Hebrew school as a little girl. I used to say this every morning because in Hebrew school we were taught to say it. In the
Still
morning
teach
we
it.
get up, do you?
Absolutely.
Yeah, to
Sam
say the
Glazer has a
Shema
great
when I
version of
was
it.
I woke up every morning saying that.
Yeah, we
And it's, in my life, it is reflex to go to bed at night saying the Shema when I close my eyes, and it's reflex for me to say Modeh Ani. Now, that's different than actually thinking about it, but it's a prompt. It's only a prompt, which is powerful and important to say when you get up in the morning, feel grateful for another day. Feel and fill in the blank what you're grateful for. Roz?
I've had sleeping issues, and I have learned when I wake up 1 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 5 o'clock, I don't want to be waking up at that time because it's going to throw my schedule off. So I say the Shema as soon as I wake up
To go back to
to
sleep.
go back to sleep.
Mhm.
It has worked.
So again, that can be a transition object in a positive sense. Something there to help root us, give us ease, and allow us to let go with trust back to sleep. Because the key to falling asleep is trust. That you're safe, that everything's fine, and that you can and will fall asleep. Another mindset in terms of these first prayers of waking that is, in some sense, this next one very Jewish within monotheism. Elohai neshama shenatata bi tahora hi. That too, there's many melodies for, and Shefa Gold has a melody you can find online. My God, this is personal, neshama, soul breath, that you have placed within me, it is pure. Playing off the image that God breathed into Adam, nishmat chayim, the breath of life, and that means that we're vessels carrying God's breath, God's consciousness within us. Because the goal of that affirmation is to say, when I wake up in the morning, I am valuable. I carry God's soul, and it's pure within me. There is the statement in the Talmud, I place within you a pure soul, and then if you sully it, you will leave this earth before your time. So that's the negative way of framing it, but this is the positive way of saying, of the affirmation, I am valuable, I am beloved, I am the carrier of God's Spirit. There is this whole series of blessings that you say, in the Talmud they're said as part of waking up, and they're now put into our liturgy. But there are two, they're about body, thanking God for the ability to bend over, the ability to open your eyes, and they include, praise to you, Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who restores vigor to the weary. Praise to you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who removes sleep from my eyes and slumber from my eyelids. And so these are affirmations, intentions, statements of intentionality. When we tell ourselves that we're awake, and thank God for removing sleep from our eyes, slumber from our eyelids, and doing it twice here, sort of speaking, in a row, we're renewed. We're able to continue. But look, this is very nice. May we feel at home with your Torah, cling to your mitzvot. Strengthen our desire to do good deeds. May we find grace, love, and compassion in your sight. Grant us a full measure of loving kindness. Praise to you, Lord, who bestows loving kindness upon his people Israel. So the affirmation of God is love, give us, God, that ability to experience your love, is the mindset of awaking in the morning. Any thoughts about waking up in the morning? And then I want to read two more things, and then a guided meditation. Any other thoughts about challenges of waking up?
I love morning. I'm so happy when the sun gets on the morning.
I knew this wonderful man, Houston Smith. Houston Smith was son of missionaries who was raised in China, who became an important writer on comparative religion. And from what I saw, as close as there is to saintly. And he used to say that every morning when he'd get up, he'd go, yes, not me. I think that so much of that is dispositional. It takes me a while to kind of not only wake up, but feel good. I get up, maybe because I'm often sleep deprived, but some people are
I'm
blessed.
the most productive in the morning when I do get up, and if I have a task,
Yeah,
I know I want to
clear
get done,
mind.
especially a writing task or a reading. If I do it and tackle it first thing in the morning, it's my best time.
But
Yeah.
there's clearly people who love to get up and I want to talk and I want to tell you a little bit about what's going on today. And,
Oh,
blah,
no,
blah,
we
blah.
don't.
And there's clearly people who like a quiet morning. Like my husband, he would rather it just be quiet, which that's too bad. I'm just like, so, Ron just like sit quiet and read the paper and not me. I'm like buzzing around the kitchen. I'm just going.
So people have different hardwired
Yeah.
dispositions. It's how they were as children. It may even have been how they were in the womb. Some people move, some people are more mellow. And to some degree, it's hardwired. And to be honored is just, ooh.
What was that?
That was my, I knew I should have plugged it in for more energy. So, I get 10% more. I got 10% more. Not a lot. That'll go soon. So with that, because I only have 10% more, and because it's already 8:35, I'm going to do a little guided meditation to sort of speaking, give a taste for the value of letting go with somebody guiding us letting go. I shared last week, I did a very short one and a little fast, a guided meditation. So I'm going to go a little bit slower. And if you who are going to be watching this are still with us, will fade away.
Jeez, that's kind of scary.
Say Shema. Anybody
So
have-
the first thing
anybody have
is,
extra lighter?
so I invite you to follow along. This is a little taste of ways in which we can prepare ourselves for calm at night. To hear somebody else's voice guiding us toward calm and ease can enable a letting go of all the tensions of the day, of all the unsolved problems, knowing that when we wake in the morning, we will be able to address those needs. But now, to achieve a taste of calm, I invite you to breathe out all tension and to breathe in trust, to breathe out all fear and to breathe in hope, allowing yourself to breathe in and out with great ease. We're going to breathe in and out and hold our breath, breathing in to the count of 4, holding for 7, and then through our mouth with a whoosh sound, breathing out to the count of 8. We're going to do this 4 times. Breathe in to 4, hold for 7, breathe out. Do it 3 more times now on your own. Breathing into the count of 4, hold to the count of 7, and breathing out with whoosh on to 8. 2 more times. One last time so I can hear the whoosh. Breathe in to the count of 4. Hold to the count of 7. Whoosh. And now allow yourself to breathe calmly in and out. And see yourself walking on a path. As you slowly move down a hill, around you is scenery that you find calming and soothing. There's nothing there that you are allergic to, so you breathe in deeply. And as you breathe in, you feel yourself breathing in a scent that soothes you, calms you. Continue walking down the path. 3, 2, 1. As you come to a clearing, and there in the clearing you see a very comfortable chair. And walk toward that chair, and you sit in that chair, and you're able to feel your whole body relaxing as you allow yourself to breathe out all the tensions and feel calm. Before you, the sun is going down. And as the sun goes down, you know that you will never be in darkness because God's light will surround you throughout the night. And you will be safe, protected, and held. As you breathe in and out, the scent that you breathe again deepens your deep relaxation as your whole body, from your scalp down through your spine, all the muscles of your shoulders, your neck, your back, your chest, your stomach, all the muscles of your lower body from your waist down, relaxed and breathed out all the tensions, Now, if this was night, you would be able to sleep in a way that you would awake in the morning with calm. I'm going to count from 3 to 1 as you begin to stay steady, not falling yet into this deep sleep in this moment. 3, 2, 1. At this point, you could either choose to go to sleep and just allow yourself to remain deeply calm, or in this moment, for those who wish, I will bring you back to this space. But before I do, take a look to your right, just to the right of your chair, and there's an object there. And that object is there to help you remember this place and this deep feeling of relaxation. Reach over and pick up that object and feel it in the palm of your hand. Breathe out as that object becomes the right size to fit comfortably in your palm. Breathe out and examine the object, its weight, its color, its edges. Become aware of this object as a gift to you. And feel it in your palm in this moment as an aid to feeling deeply relaxed. Breathe again the scent around you as you feel yourself relaxed. As the object that you feel in your palm is identified with that scent and the scenery and that comfortable chair. In a moment, you'll place the object back on the ground, but hold it in your palm and take a good look, because at any point in the future, you can bring to mind that object in your palm and be as if brought back to this place of deep relaxation. Breathe out and place the object back in the ground. Breathe out as you feel yourself, your whole body supported by the chair, calm and relaxed. I'm going to count from 1 to 3, at which point you'll rise from the chair. 1, 2, 3. Now standing. As you begin to walk again, now going back up, leaving this open clearing, I'm going to count from 1 to 3 as you continue to rise. 1, 2, 3, reaching the open space. And last, I'll count from 1 to 3 as you return back to the chair in this moment, feeling calm and relaxed, but wakeful, fully awake, yet able to remember the object that you found. And with that object, able to return to that place in your mind. And in that place, at night, to be able to bring to mind all the scenery that you found so beautiful, and the scent that was soothing, and that deep feeling of calm. 1, 2, 3. Open your eyes as you've returned to this place. Well, I'm glad the recording still worked.
We need some cots.
We have them downstairs in the preschool. I keep one, yeah.
Wouldn't it be nice?
So, any reactions to that guided meditation? I don't know how long that was. It was probably about 8 minutes.
Was it? That was 8 minutes you just did?
Maybe shorter. Probably about 8 minutes. Which is to say, in doing that little exercise, 2 things. One, I do hope that you have an object that you experienced that you will consider trying out tonight. You may want to write it down right after class, just even a little drawing of it, just so you remember it. And practice it. Kind of go to bed tonight and just kind of practice it. Try to reclaim the place you chose to go to, the smell or scent that you found soothing. And you got to practice it a few days to have it there as a resource. But I would hope that it would be a resource for you, because our minds are powerful. These images are really potent. And, you see a scary movie and it's hard to or you have a fight or, with somebody, even a word or two, and you feel like you've upset somebody. Words, ideas, memories grab us. And the flip side is we can program ourselves to have intentionality to be relaxed. It's hard, but it does take preparation. And it's as important as the ambient for most people. Sometimes people need the medications. And there's, again, to honor differences and different physical needs. I always think of my brother, who's a neurologist, who says the great challenge he has with his patients, and he specializes in seizures, as does my wife Linda. But my brother Mark would say that the challenge is telling people that he's not giving them drugs, he's giving them chemicals that the body would otherwise produce. And it just naturally, these are natural chemicals that allow balance. So that's the case sometimes for people medically. But for most of us, what keeps us up at night is our worries, our relationships, our letting go of the day. And this kind of guided visualization, meditation, and these prayers are resources for greater calm. Rose?
Suggestion?
Yeah.
Because I have some meditation, and I had it on my phone, which we're not supposed to be having because of the blue light. So I recorded it. So I carry this around. This is what goes to bed with me at night, not my phone. And I'm going to go home tonight and take that live and put it on here also. So I'll have 2 meditation things to listen to.
Oh, good.
So
Good.
the idea is not to have your phone, but have it on another device that's simple.
So-
No blue light.
So let me do this. Let me close up, and that way I'll say goodbye here for anybody who's been watching, and then just some closing guidance that you might have. So thank you for listening. Do email me, elliespitz@gmail.com, for any reactions. May you sleep well tonight. Thank you. So